Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. And I've got to say a very special welcome to a man who is, let me just say, Alan, you are a machine. What you've just shared with me in terms of your week last week and what you've done is absolutely incredible. Mr. Alan Lazaros, all the way from Boston, Massachusetts in the States. Welcome to the podcast.
Darren, thank you for having me. I try to sandwich everything that's aligned that I do in gratitude, and I really, really, really do not take it lightly, because in this noisy, very distracting world, what you pay attention to is very much influencing everything about your future, what you say, think, do, feel, and believe. And so thank you for having me, and I appreciate that compliment. Last week was 51, a new personal best for me of coaching, training, and podcasting. But trust me, every week is not that. If it was, my voice would be even worse than it is right now.
Now, if a fellow listener to this, you're thinking 51 coaching sessions, training, podcast episodes, is there enough hours in the week? Well, let's just put this into context. Most people work in Australia a 38 to 40 hour week, maybe with a little bit of overtime. But you were just sharing with me that your normal day, 6 days a week, is around 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you've taken out what used to be the buffer zone in terms of 15 or half an hour sort of breaks to try and squeeze in as much as you possibly can. But what this talks to me about is, and you're the CEO, co-founder of Next Level University, it means that you have to be really productive. But as you just talked about, really, really focused on serving the people that are in front of you, because you could very easily get very tired, very fatigued through 51 hours and not necessarily deliver at the optimum level. So I'm going to love this conversation, because you're all about next level. You're all about making sure we're focused and we're there to serve. So just tell me about the psychology that it takes to actually do that. I mean, you said it was a personal best, but what was your experience? What did you find? What was some of the key lessons from last week?
First and foremost, it was Sunday. We went on a little date day. We went to the bookstore. We actually ended up doing a little bit too much. We also got a great workout in, my girlfriend and I. She runs her own company, and we have a company together as well, and she's putting a lot on the court as well. But we're also in our mid-30s, right? I mean, we're going to build a family, and when we have kids, we're not going to be able to do this same exact amount. So there's that as well. But I have this target. It's called a P3 target. It's right over here.
Yeah.
And it's picture a little mini funnel. We're on a sales podcast, so we can talk about a little funnel here. P3, P2, P1. So the top of the funnel is P3, and P stands for priority. So priority 1, priority 2, priority 3 from the bottom up, priority 3, priority 2, priority 1 from the top down. So P3 is podcasting. That is 1 to scale. Mm-hmm. Then training, P2 is 1 to several. And then P1 is 1-to-1, which is one-on-one coaching. And so the bottom is the most profitable, so the most depth for the least breadth, but for the highest profit. And then the top is free, which is 1 to scale, which is podcasting, obviously, this included. And I think that all of us, and I coach right now 28 business owners, essentially, some of them very early and then some of them very not. But ultimately, everyone has their own sort of little peak performance, productivity, priority funnel, if you really look at it. Yeah. There's most people, if they're very, very successful, what I've found is the more you hone in what you do, the more you specialize, and you can't do this at first if you're new into business, by the way, but over time you can through delegation, automation, that kind of thing. And so you hone and you dial in your scope, the bigger the impact you can actually have. Yeah. And the more profitable you can become. And so what I learned from last week is, number one, if I'm going to sustain this, I need to get better sleep. I track my sleep every day on this Oura Ring, and one thing that I will say, if anyone does aspire to average 51 coaching, training, and podcast sessions per week, if you're out of your mind like me, Monday through Saturday from 11 to 7:30 p.m., and also it leaks into the evenings and sometimes the mornings. But if you do aspire to that level, it's sort of the metaphor that I use is, I listen to a lot of Michael Phelps motivation. I just watched the Simone Biles Netflix series on and so inspiring. I mean, these people are the best on planet Earth at what they do.
Yeah.
And I used to be too much of a coward to share that that's my true desire as well, is to just be the best that I can be at coaching, training, and podcasting, specifically around business and dialing in your habits. So the 3 subjects that I study daily is, and at least one of these daily, top 3 subjects is productivity, self-improvement, and business.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 3 vehicles for which I deploy those 3 things is coaching, training, and podcasting. And so you're seeing the 10th year of me really reevaluating my career and my calling 10 years ago after a tough car accident to now. I just PR'd last week with 51, but I guarantee you this week will not be 51. I don't even have 51 on the schedule. As a matter of fact, Monday has been a lot of back office today, so I'm already behind the 8 ball.
I was going to say, Alan, as the CEO and founder of Next Level University, and we talked about before the podcast started, mate, there's always a next level to get to, right? So as a high performer, as an exceptional leader, you'd be thinking, wow, 51 last week, there's got to be 52 next week because I've got to smash a record. Where does it end? So here's a question for you, right? Because I want to delve into your story and what created you on this path. When you're working with people who have the aspiration to be the best in their class, right? From around productivity, self-improvement, and business. How do you balance, I guess the desire to be better, improve, with satisfaction or fulfillment or gratitude for where you're at?
Yeah. So if I looked up, I was on with a client before this. That's why I was a little late. So thank you for your patience. But his name's Matt. And this is a 730 math SATs, high IQ type A, who has kind of been conditioned to dial back because it's not very socially acceptable.
Yeah.
And when I watch these Michael Phelps motivational videos, he went 5 years straight in the pool without missing a single day. 365 days a year, holidays, Christmas, I mean, you name it. And then it was 2008. Boom, all the Olympic gold medals. And I said this to my girlfriend. I said, sweetheart, I am truly jealous, not of the gold medal, but of the fact that he has the permission slip to not be available.
Mm.
Because I grew up in an environment that was a fun-centered paradigm. It was have as much fun as possible, a lot of people, a lot of partying, that kind of thing. And I realized later on in life that I'm actually wired in a way that's very type A. And if you look up type A on ChatGPT or whatever, it's high conscientiousness, it's constant structure, it's discipline, it's a very, the results that come from it are very enviable, but the process itself is actually something that most people shy away from. Mm. And so what I've found is that the type A people that I coach, I just help them own who they are and dial it up. The people that aren't type A that think they are, those are harder for me because I kind of have to help them understand that they're not like me, but maybe they could be a little bit more strategic. And then there's some people who are more dabblers and they just aren't fulfilled unless they have a lot of variety. So for me, I have Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. is coaching, training, podcasting. That would be unfulfilling for most people. However, I do think your audience, I told you this before we hit record, sales and leadership, 2 of the hardest things on planet Earth combined. And I lead a team now of 15 people. And I did inside sales engineer back in corporate, and then I did outside sales engineering. And so sales and persuasion and influence has obviously been a huge part of my life. It still is. Anyone who runs their own company, obviously understanding storytelling and effective communication and how to do all that, even what I'm doing right now. But to answer your original question, fulfillment, I think, is a byproduct, at least for me, of putting everything I've got on the court. Mm. Because prior to that car accident that we'll get into at 26, I was kind of lost. I was an achiever, but I wasn't reaching my potential. Mm. And the one more thing that I've been sharing a lot lately, now that I realize math modality of thinking isn't everyone's first. So I always say I'm an engineer, forgive me for that. There's 4 modalities of thinking from what I've uncovered. There's math, logic, rationality, structure, equations, formulas. That's mine. That's the rarest. And salespeople have a lot of math typically, not always, but typically. And then, especially sales engineers. Number 2 is energy, vibe, and intuition. Mm. That was my worst. Didn't have that at all until my 30s. Then the third is words and concepts. That's actually very, very common. Most people think in conversations, words and
Yeah.
concepts. That's probably my second. And then fourth is pictures, images, and vision. And
Mm.
you really need all four if you want to be an extraordinary leader. But if you don't have the math one, you're not going to resonate with me almost at all.
Yeah.
And so the point that I'm making here is that if you want to be top 1 in 100 healthy, top 1 in 100 wealthy, and top 1 in 100 in love, health, wealth, and love are the three pillars that I focus on, that's 1 in a million right there.
Mm.
So you better be ready to work. And when I coach people, it's been very challenging for me to get them to understand the statistical rarity of someone who's healthy, wealthy, and in love. Because people come to you and they say, well, I want financial freedom, and I want a better body, and I want a better business, and I want a better relationship.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to work. Right? It's laughable. It's genuinely laughable. It's like, well, where did you get this idea that you can have all of that without work?
Social media.
Because, yeah. Well, see, and that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I can't stand it. It's really unfortunate. It's very entitled, and it's very arrogant, in my opinion, to believe that you're going to be healthy, wealthy, and in love with financial freedom with very little effort, right? And for some reason, that's pervading the world a lot. There's 6 billion people online, and I think there's a lot of people with generational wealth that didn't build it themselves from the past 90s and stuff that are now just kind of posting on social media and making it look like laptop lifestyle, when in reality that doesn't actually work.
Well, and that points to, and we'll get to this story in a second, but I mentioned you put a post on LinkedIn a little while ago where you talked about, I'm not sure where you call it the next level university framework. There was literally 5 S's. We talked about sacrifice, struggle, suffering, success, and then sustainability, right? So nothing worth achieving is not worth working for, right? So you're going to have to go through a level of pain and find out a little bit about what you are, where your blind spots are, in order to push through that to be able to achieve what it is you ultimately want to achieve. But there's a price you have to pay. It's like the hero's journey, right? You just don't go from zero to hero and everything's fantastic. You're going to have challenges, right? Expect it. And you're going to have to work your butt off.
Yeah, the majority of the journey, and the 5 S's of success is what we call that at Next Level U. And for Next Level U, by the way, it's just a place you go to learn how to be the next level version of yourself. So I always use the iPhone as a metaphor. 2007, I was a senior in high school. Steve Jobs and Apple come out with the very first iPhone. It's an iPod, and it's a phone, and what was the other one? It's an iPod, it's a phone, and it's the internet, and it's all in one. Steve Jobs was a hero of mine and very effective communicator, obviously visionary.
Yeah.
And I've watched that. I don't know if you've watched that speech with the iPhone when he first released it, right? It's a phone, it's an iPod, so 1,000 songs in your pocket. But anyways, so in 2007, that was a revolutionary breakthrough. And now this is the iPhone 14. I think they have the 16 out now. If you compared the very first iPhone to the iPhone 16, it would be the worst phone ever. I mean, it would be awful. It would be, does this thing even work?
Yeah.
Does it even, and the camera would be atrocious and all that stuff. And so I try to apply the same exact principle to my own personal growth. So this is Alan version 3.6. This is the iPhone 16. And if you compare Alan version 3.6 to Alan version 2.6, not intelligent, not as capable, not as dialed in, not as, right? So, but I think I've forgotten, the 5 S's. Yeah. So the 5 S's of success are this idea that only 4 of them are actually perceived as negative, and only 1 of them is perceived as positive, and it's the one that you spend the least time in when it comes to getting to the next level. And so the first S is sacrifice. Unfortunately, there's this idea, and I've studied the self-improvement space a lot. I've been in it for about 10 years, and I'll use Oprah. I respect her very much, so I don't want this to come off negative, but I remember I heard her say, well, if I could go back in time, I would tell my younger self not to worry so much.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that's terrible advice. And the reason I think that's terrible advice is because the reason you became Oprah is because you were concerned about it. It's called a circle of concern.
Yeah.
So there's people on the couch eating Cheetos saying, well, I guess I shouldn't worry so much. Well, it might not work out.
It's okay. Don't worry.
If you're not worried about your future, it might not be well designed, right? So let's wake up and be concerned, and not in a negative way, but in a positive way. And so the very first S of success is sacrifice. And for whatever reason, a lot of the people that already achieve success, they do start saying, well, it's not a sacrifice, and if I could go back, I'd do it again. And It's like, listen, there's I could be anywhere else in the world right now.
Mm.
I'm on this podcast talking to you, Darren, because this is a trade-off. I'm giving up time with my family to be here with you and your listeners. Now,
Mm.
it's worth it and it's a good choice and I'm grateful to be here, but let's not get it twisted. That's a sacrifice. That's an
Yep.
investment, right? And so that's number one is sacrifice. Number two, after you sacrifice, there's struggle.
Mm.
Because the pain of the sacrifice, the trade off, is always felt long before the benefit. This may
Yep.
never benefit us, right? It probably will. Great
Yeah,
episode.
probably.
But it may or may not. I've been on many shows that stopped their show and nothing ended up coming of it, right?
Stop
So
the
that's
show.
just the truth. It is what it is. You got to shoot stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and hopefully strategically, right? But so that's sacrifice and then it's struggle. Once you get past struggle, it doesn't get better yet. Now it's the third S, which is suffer. This is where most people quit.
Yeah.
This is the part where you really feel the pain. You're lonely. People are making fun of you. Your family's upset that you weren't at the barbecue. Your friend is sending you a text message that's really hateful because you said something online he disagrees with, or she, most likely he. And it just sucks.
Mm.
It's just brutal. However, if you can stick in that and you can keep grinding, whether it's fitness or whatever, marriage, I'm not married yet, but we're intending. So if you can stick with it and get through that shedding of the snakeskin that hurts, the next one is success.
Mm.
And you will reach a new level. Last
Mm.
week was a new PR, and it was brutal. I mean, some of those nights were brutal. But I got to the end of the week and I told Emilia and I said, I tracked my numbers, 51. And I was pumped. So that feels good. Achievement feels good.
Yeah.
Especially for achievers. If you don't identify as an achiever, you probably do because you listen to this podcast. But if you don't, maybe achievement doesn't feel as good for you, but I think it could if you wire yourself that way. And then the last S is sustain. So once you hit success, it's not over. Now you got to find a way to stay at that level. And so I think the world's biggest lie is that success makes life easier.
Mm.
When you make it into the NFL or the NBA or the NHL, life is not easier.
No.
Now you have to play against the best in the world. And now if you get injured, you lose millions of dollars instead of no money when you were in college. I think that the world wants the idea of success a lot more than the process beneath the iceberg that no one sees to actually achieve it and sustain it and build upon it.
Yeah.
And I think that that is what I'm really trying very hard to spread in the world is, what do you get for achievement? If it's the right achievement and it's in alignment with your core values, you get fulfillment as a byproduct. You get to look in the mirror and feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
You also get a ton of growth and a ton of learning and a ton of potential unlocked inside of you. And then what else can I do? What else can I do? What else can I do? And the very last piece of the 5 S's of success is if you do get through that whole cycle, yes, you have to rinse and repeat forever, but you get a lot of self-belief.
Yeah.
That's what I think everyone really wants. They want self-belief and they want self-worth. Self-belief is I believe in my ability to achieve externally. Self-worth is I hold value in myself because I've done hard things and I've come out on the other side. And I don't think you can manufacture that. I think you can only organically grow that from within.
I think it's a fantastic process. And when you think about it, it kind of goes against the grain of what society is trying to paint in terms of a picture. So you mentioned before the push button profits, lifestyle of the laptop and stuff like that. You have this, push this button, you'll get success. All right, be an influencer on TikTok or be an influencer on Instagram. But it takes work, right? So you listen to, and we've just had the NFL Super Bowl, right? And in Australia, there's a lot being made of an Australian guy that played for the Philadelphia Seagulls, and he's on $100 million contract, right? And he couldn't make a rugby team in Australia before he went to the US and took a punt on maybe making it in the NFL, right? Now, People
Whoa.
love a winner, right? They love to see somebody at the top of their game, and they say, and this is the danger. Oh, I would love to be like that. And they only see what we're now talking about is the success. They've reached the pinnacle
Yeah. Yep.
without any real comprehension of what it took to get there, not just in terms of the sacrifice, but the work on the individual. So how much? So let's go back to 2020 when you were 26 and you had an accident, right? Leading
Mm-hmm.
up to that, which led you on a path to do this. If you were to describe your self-worth and self-image before that compared to now, I would say it's chalk and cheese. But
Mm-hmm.
what was the realization that you had? Because that was a life-altering event.
Chalk and cheese. I think that's the first time I've ever heard that. I've actually coached a few people from Australia too. Is that an Australian thing? Chalk and cheese?
Yeah, I apologize for that. We've got a lot
Oh,
of
don't apologize. This is awesome. Also, Darren, when you talk about the laptop lifestyle and the Instagram and influencer stuff, that's something I would turn to you. And maybe this is after I'll answer your question, share my story. But as someone who's older, so I'm 36. I know I'm still young for a leader, but also, not 20 anymore. And although I look 12, um, helps me in my business career a ton. Men love learning from people who look 15. I'm kidding. But I would ask you, how fascinating has it been to witness such a shift from the 80s and 90s and early 2000s to, the 4-hour work week? I mean, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Like, I just can't imagine a world where you work 4 hours a week and actually build a real business. And by the way, Tim Ferriss, I respect and admire a lot of his work, but that dude has never worked 4 hours a week in his life. That dude was 60 hours a week every week for a decade, long before any of that. And he was at Ivy League and all that kind of stuff too. And again, I respect him. And I actually think a lot of the concepts, Pareto principle and all that is good in the book, but it's a very dangerous title.
yeah,
And I get it. It's marketing, right?
yeah.
I mean, it's marketing. But I would ask you that after I share my story, unless you want to throw in an anecdote now.
Well, in terms of what I think of the 4 hour work
What do
week.
you think about this shift that's happened in the world where this idea of achieving more with working less? I just can't. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think I look at it, and maybe I'm old school because I'm about 20 years older than you. So, and people say I look about 30. So anyway, but I've got
You do look very young. Good
I've
for
got good
you.
filters on
Yeah,
me on
strong
the
word.
Zoom.
Yeah, yeah, nice.
But I talk to my grandparents have since passed, but you talk to grandparents and parents and fathers-in-law and people who have been before us, and you try to get an understanding of their story and what they went through, and they worked hard, right? There was no such thing as, hey,
Yeah,
just sit back and you're just going to get paid for doing absolutely nothing. My perception, this is my perception, right? So this is my filter of the world, is
yeah,
there's too many people today that want an easy road, and you've got governments around the world that are wanting to give handouts to say, hey, don't work too hard, we'll take care of you. And so people are lazy generally, right? And
yeah,
so if you want to differentiate yourself and say, what, I'm prepared to work, I'm prepared to do 6 days a week, 11 till 7:30, because I believe in what I'm doing, but I'm going to actually make a contribution to a team, a business, a community, whatever the case might be. And I'm prepared to do it for as long as it takes to get to the level where I'm happy with the progress I'm making and hopefully the things that I'm achieving. So, I mean, I look at my kids, right, and very proud of my kids. They're completely different. One's just started as a doctor, and the other one's an interior designer, right? So, very creative and very scientific.
cool.
But they work hard, right? And these
Yeah,
guys are 20, 21, and 25, so they work
nice.
hard. So, the thing I think when I look at things like four-day work week, it's a great concept. What I look at though is saying, okay, in order for me to be sustainably successful, how can I best leverage my time and get myself surrounded with good
Yeah,
people that can help me be more productive and more efficient so that I'm not doing the things that I shouldn't be doing and I'm focusing on the things that I'm a genius at. That's what I
yeah,
think.
nice. You actually, it's so funny because again, this is your frame, and I appreciate it because it's my frame as well. But you said the 4-day work week. It's the 4-hour work week.
Sorry.
So you, of
Yeah, yeah.
course, your
Good listeners,
subconscious
please.
said it wrong because you can't imagine a 4-hour work week because
Yeah.
it doesn't exist. Now, it depends. It depends. If you want to aim high, not gonna happen. I had someone come to me and say, well, I want to start a business. I really hope, I want to start a business so I have more free time.
Good luck with that.
Good luck. I don't know what business you're going to start, but no. I mean, no. But again, it is what it is. You can have more control over your schedule. Is that what you're looking for? Right. So it's a whole other conversation. So to get into my story, I think one of the things that's been fascinating to me, and again, I was never courageous enough to share this stuff before my 30s. Honestly, before even recently, the last couple of years. But I am someone who looks like I was born on third base. And I do get that, right? I was born in Massachusetts, white Caucasian male, pretty intellectual,
Yeah.
pretty sound mind. And I did have a few advantages, and one of them is definitely this idea of giftedness. The old me never would have been able to talk about this, but I do feel pretty gifted when it comes to being good at things and being very intelligent. I'm very intellectually gifted. Straight A's in high school without having to try that hard. That said, one of the things that's been actually pretty challenging for me is I actually have a childhood that was on the very high end of massively painful.
Okay.
And so the three main parts of my story that I can articulate here that I think would give the best high-level picture without getting into too many of the details, because some of them I'm not even willing to share.
Yeah.
But the first part of my life, three-act structure here, sort of storytelling. The first part, in hindsight, again, I didn't know this at the time. This is just in hindsight, reflecting on my story, therapy in my 30s, really rewatching the movie of my own life. Mm. When I was 2 years old, my birth father passed away in a car accident when he was 28.
Wow.
So I was 2.5. My sister was 6. My mom was 31. And his name was John McCorkle. My real last name is actually McCorkle. He was part of a big Irish Catholic family. It was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. 6 kids, all J.
6
exactly.
J's.
Yeah, 6 J's. And my stepfather came into the picture when I was 3. And so from age 3 to 14, I had a stepfather named Steve Lazaros. And I took his last name, my sister and I took his last name around, I think when I was 7. Don't quote me on that, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
But we became sort of the Lazaroses very quickly. And because of that, we weren't really associating much with the McCorkles anymore.
Yeah, okay.
And so stepfather leaves at 14. This is back in, so birth father passed away in 91. So that means, 14 years after that? You're looking at 2003.
Yeah.
No, 2005. So 2005. So in 2005, I was a freshman in high school. So I'm 14 years old. My stepdad leaves. Hardest year of my life by far. Didn't know that at the time. Had no freaking clue what was going on.
Yeah.
Stepfather leaves. Now, in the 90s, he worked for a company called AGFA. They did hospital computers in the U.S. And the dot-com bubble, the U.S. is by far the largest economy. It was just wild here. It was wild, especially in New England. I mean, everybody had money in the 90s. Everybody. It was, again, not everybody, but compared to now, it was a wild time. And you can look this up and research this. But it was boats and ski trips and snowmobiles. We had a yacht. We had an apartment building. My mom drove a BMW. We had trucks. We had a Ducati motorcycle. I mean, it was just, from the outside in, it looked amazing.
Yeah.
From the inside out, my mom and stepdad did not get along, and that's a very polite way to put it on a public medium. Stepfather leaves, takes 90% of the income with him. This is right around when the dot-com bubble burst, and the economy was kind of tanking. The 2000s are known as the lost decade between 01, 02, and 2008, 2009. And so I go from boats and ski trips, early Christmas presents, Xbox Dreamcast, to trying to get into my favorite school. My college of choice was Worcester Polytechnic Institute. My uncle was the track and field coach there, Uncle Merle, and they still call it Norcross Field, actually, Uncle Merle Norcross. And my dream was to go to WPI. It was $50,000 a year back then. Big engineering college, kind of like a mini MIT in Massachusetts. One of the most famous engineering schools in the world. Now, I go from I hope I get in to even if I do get in, there's no freaking way I can go because we don't have any money. Mm-hmm. So I go from boats and ski trips to my stepdad leaves, and our income is so low that I now get free lunch at school.
Yeah.
We're shopping at Salvation Army. We're not going to starve. Mom trades in her BMW for a little Honda Civic. How do we keep the house in the family? So he got the yacht and the apartment building. We got the house and the dog. Hardest year of my life. He leaves, takes his entire extended family with him. To this day, I've never seen or spoken to a single one of them since, except for him on Facebook Messenger a little bit. Yeah.
Wow.
I talked to him in my mid-20s on Facebook Messenger, and then again in my 30s a little bit, but nothing substantial. I mean,
wow.
That's as much as I'll say about that. So, same year, I'm 14 years old. Sister moves out with her older boyfriend. She graduated. She was a senior when I was a freshman. My mom gets in a fight with her sister, my Aunt Sandy. My Aunt Sandy ostracizes us from that side of the family. So here I am, 14 years old. We don't associate with the McCorkles anymore.
Yeah.
The Lazaroses are gone completely. And then the Higgins family, my mom's side, gone. To this day, I've still only ever seen or spoken to 2 people from her side of the family.
Wow.
So I didn't know this at the time, right? Because I'm 14 and I know nothing else. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't know. Now, in hindsight, through therapy, it's, I mean, that's a lot of abandonment in a very short amount of time.
Totally.
So I became sort of this goodwill hunting, semi-genius, don't lose any more friends and family, hang on to everything you've got type of kid.
Yeah.
So I get straight A's through all of high school. I graduate 8th in my class. I get what's called the President's Award. It's signed by George W. Bush behind me. And it basically means you get a 95 or above GPA for every report card, for all 16 report cards all through high school. I get into WPI. I graduate with high distinction, computer engineering. I get my master's in business, and I was off to the races in corporate. And I went to all the different tech companies, not all of them, but many. iRobots, Inside Technologies, Oz Development, Tyco Safety Products, Simplex Grinnell. Eventually landed at a company called Cognex. Now it's 2012 bachelor's, 2013 master's, internships, boom, 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 corporate, all the way to leading to 2015. This is when the economy is coming back after '08, and I'm in industrial automation working for a company called Cognex, and you can look at the stock of Cognex. I mean, it's just doing well. I mean, industrial automation, machine vision, picture the eyes of a robot. I started an inside sales engineering there, and then inside sales engineering team, little team, so sales engineering, sales leader, even though I didn't call myself that back then, and then inside sales engineering, and then outside sales engineering. I did Vermont, Connecticut, Western Mass, and I made a ton of money in a very short amount of time. I paid off 84 grand worth of college debt in a single year. Whoa. Wow. Put all the rest of my money. I'm used to being a broke high school and college kid.
Yeah.
So I'm dating a woman named Courtney at the time. My rent is $500. I don't have any kids. I bought a 2004 Volkswagen Passat for $5 grand cash. I'm making $12,000 biweekly. I mean, I went from 65 to 85, 85 to 105, 105 to 125, 125 to 180 is what I peaked at. But they had a referral program at Cognex where I kept bringing in people from my college, and I just got the bonuses instead of the headhunters. So I invested it all in Vanguard. I had all this tech companies that I thought would win, and they did very well. So I had 150 grand in an investment account for Vanguard. I spend almost no money because I'm used to being flat out broke, and I'm just off to the races, just banking money. Then I get in my car accident.
In the Passat?
Yes. Luckily.
Well, I was going to say, I've got a 2008 Passat. Love it.
It's so good.
Love it.
The 2004 Volkswagen Passat saved my life.
Yeah.
It's a heavy tank of a car, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Big car.
Oh, it's so good. Great car. Yeah. So thank you, Volkswagen.
Yes.
But anyways, so 2015, I'm 26. High school friends brought them to college. College friends brought them to corporate. Abandonment challenges. Never knew any of this until my 30s. Definitely wouldn't have talked about it.
Mm.
But I was sort of this super achiever, believe in everybody type of guy. Try to keep as my friends and family close. Sort of bring everybody with me. Sort of save the world type of guy for sure. And but didn't know any of that at the time, and I certainly didn't know any of this was weird, by the way, until later in reflection. And so then I get in my car accident in 2015, dark winter night, supposed to yield, I don't. I'm up in New Hampshire, the snowbanks are covering the yield sign. I'm with my little cousin, second cousin Dan, so the 2 people that came back from my mother's side.
Yes.
One of them's named Jeff, my first cousin. My second cousin Dan was in the car with me. Head-on collision, my fault. Crossed the double yellows. I thought it was a Mack truck. Luckily, it was a lift-kitted pickup truck, and luckily I was in that Volkswagen. So both airbags deployed. Thank you, Volkswagen. Little cousin hurt his knee on the airbag. I hurt my face on the airbag. But this, for me, my dad died when he was 28 in a car. And I spent my whole life hearing stories about John.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm 26, and this is the second chance he never got.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just flipped the script. I went from externally successful and internally unfulfilled to I found self-improvement, baby. I found my answer. And I went all in on self-improvement. I went past broke. I started my own company called Alan Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school, but desperately in all caps need to know. And I wanted to bring personal development to the school system, which was a terrible idea, although I'm still kind of trying to do that my own way. And that's when Next Level University was born, and it was called the Hyperconscious Podcast, and then Next Level University, and that was 10 years ago. And so the quickest possible version is before 26, I was improvement-oriented and achievement-oriented, and I was definitely type A, super achiever without knowing it. And after 26, I channeled all that inward. I went all in on happy, healthy, productive fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach.
Yeah.
Just self-improvement, personal growth, mental health. And I went from externally successful and unfulfilled to internally fulfilled as hell, but externally broke. Liquidated all my assets. I went past broke. And now I'm where I think everyone wants to get, which is externally successful and internally fulfilled. And you just want your future to be an amplified version of what it already is.
Man, as you were talking, you would obviously know a guy called Brendan Burchard.
Yes.
You know Brendan's story.
I do, and I've also been to several of his events.
Yeah.
I actually, one of his close friends is a close friend of mine. He came to our book club recently. You know Anthony Trucks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're connected. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Anthony Trucks came to our book club because we did his book Identity Shift in book club recently. So
that is brilliant. And the reason I say that because he had a car accident, I think at 19, and that was the change. And he asked those questions. Does my life matter? Did I matter? Did I achieve? And am I fulfilled? Right. So what I want to ask you is you've gone from being externally successful, maybe internally not as fulfilled, to that event happens, and I want you to talk about, because there'll be a lot of people listening to this either now or into the future that think, oh, I've never had a life-altering event. So how can I make that transition? Because I'm not internally fulfilled right now. How can I make that internal transition to the point where I give myself an opportunity to live a life that's fulfilling, to build a business that's successful, to build a career that's successful? Do I have to manufacture something? So, I'm thinking not everybody gets, and I want to say this really respectfully, not everybody gets the blessing of having a life-altering event to shake you up and do that, but we've all got the capability to do that. What's your perspective on that? Because I'm sure with a lot of the people you're coaching, this is the kind of theme that potentially comes out.
It is. It absolutely is, because on one hand, you don't want anyone to experience, because there was post-traumatic growth, but there was also PTSD. I mean, double yellow lines scared me. I kept getting pulled over because I was too far on the right side of the road after that. Crowds would bother me. I was claustrophobic. I had to puff my chest and walk in and out of doorways just to get back to neutral, right?
Yeah.
So I went through a lot after that, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. However, it also dialed up the aspiration. It dialed up the, what am I really here for? Mm-hmm. And so I have these 3 circles of the ego. I wrote an article about this on my LinkedIn. And my girlfriend kind of came up with this. She calls it the tertiary, secondary, and primary truth. Same idea. I call it the 3 circles of the ego, but it's mostly her work. I rebranded it a little bit. I can't take credit. I always want to give her credit. But anyways, so I didn't realize it at the time, but this is kind of what happened. It collapsed all 3 circles. And let me explain. So the outer circle is what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, which is what you want others to believe you are. This is social media. This is perception. This is my backdrop. This is me with a collared shirt and a nice microphone, you and your backdrop, right? This is the social world, the external world, from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
So the third circle is, the outer circle, is what you want others to believe you are. who you want others to believe you are. The next layer in is who you want to believe you are. This is the story you tell yourself about yourself, which, by the way, might not be accurate. Mine certainly wasn't. Then there's the inner circle, and that's who you really are.
Yeah.
The car accident, any mortality moment is going to collapse the circles, and that's the Phoenix metaphor. And that's also the hero's journey you mentioned, Joseph Campbell, the traumatic event that happens to Luke where he has to go and reinvent himself. And again, Star Wars, whatever, you name whatever film you want, victim, villain, hero, guide. We all start out as a victim, and then we have to fight the villain inside of us. We become the hero of our own story, and eventually we become the guide when we realize we actually have self-worth. And I always use Harry Potter. The moment Harry Potter broke the wand and threw it away, that was when he was the guide.
Yes.
That's when he was enough as he is. But you can't just start there, right? Which is what we were talking about earlier. Most people are 15. It's like, I think I want to be the guide now. It's, well, you should probably go on an adventure and get off your ass. I'm kidding. But seriously, it is important. You got to go on a journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But to answer your original question, the mortality moment, it can be the death of a pet. It can be the death of a loved one. It can be facing your own mortality. It can be the loss of a job. There's got to be some sort of contemplation of your own mortality. And it can be external that hits you, like Brendan Burchard and me, or it can be something that you proactively do. It can be a death meditation. They call it ego death. And for anyone out there watching or listening, I have this sort of triad of transformation. I know circles and triads and triangles. I get it. I'm an engineer. But so it's humility, courage, and vulnerability. So I took a fire protection course back in engineering school, and I loved it. It was so cool. You needed heat, fuel, and oxygen to make fire. Coaching now, I've been doing it for 10 years, mentoring for 2, and then coaching for 8. The only difference is I started getting paid. And thousands and thousands of people, seriously, from all over the world now at this point, thousands and thousands of hours, hundreds and hundreds of people. I want to be truthful. And of those thousands and thousands of hours of coaching, training, podcasting, you just realize there's certain fundamentals. And what Emilia and I, we started coaching couples 4 years ago. We have a podcast called the Conscious Couples Podcast. It's how to flourish in your relationship. And we have these couples that we've been coaching for 4 years. Some of them come and go, and some of them are still with us. But ultimately, what I've come to realize is that the transformation, personally or in your intimate relationship, I don't believe anymore can happen without these 3 things. Number 1 is humility.
Yeah.
Not external humility, because most people think I'm arrogant. Internal humility. Yeah, for sure.
That's their projection.
Yeah. I believe so. And well, thank you. I'm grateful. So you obviously don't think so. That's good. No. That's good news. No. Thank you. So humility, inward humility.
Yeah.
Which is someone who, okay, I'm really good at this. I'm really not great at this. You own it, whatever it is. Good, bad, ugly. Okay. Yeah. Number 2 is courage. This is the one that I sucked at. Social coward right here. Just dialed down all the time. Please don't hate me. Don't call anyone out for their BS.
Yeah.
I had a person in my life said, well, nowadays, Alan, the only way to make money is in real estate. And I just zipped my lips. It's, tech, the internet, tech companies, thoughts, right? I'm like an engineer, computer engineer going, that's got to be one of the dumbest things. If that was ever not true, it would be now, right? You heard of the internet, 6 billion people online, all this stuff.
That's it.
Doesn't matter. I was just too much of a coward. Fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. The 4 trauma responses. Fawn is just socially appease. Just don't poke the bear, whatever you do. Yeah. And that was definitely me. So number 2 is courage. I just think most people don't have enough courage. You can't move forward without courage. This episode has taken so much courage. Look at how red I am. I'm not as red as I thought I'd be.
You are.
It takes so much courage to say this stuff, right?
It's because you're on fire, mate. It's because you're on fire.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And then the third one, and this is one that I did not understand until my late 20s, which is a word called vulnerability.
Yeah.
So humility is I know that I don't know. Courage is I'm going to go take a chance and find out. And vulnerability is I have fucked this up so bad and it feels terrible. I'm going to sit in it and just be okay with whatever is and hope that I can make it out on the other side stronger
Yeah.
and smarter.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those three, I mean, ultimately that's what the car accident did for me in hindsight. I didn't know any of this at the time, but it collapsed those circles of the ego, and it got all the humility, all the courage, and all the vulnerability all at once. Because when you face mortality, it gives you courage, because when you're filled with regret,
Yeah.
excuse me, when you're filled with regret of all your past horrible choices,
Yeah.
and again, horrible is the wrong word. I don't think I made a lot of poor choices. Statistically, maybe not, but I think based on my standards now, just terrible choices, especially with who to surround myself with.
Yeah.
So I was in all that regret. And so for me, when you're no longer afraid because you almost faced death, it gives you mortality courage to just say, you know what? I tried the other way, and I might as well go all in on my calling, my purpose, my mission, my potential, my contribution, whatever you want to call it. Because ultimately, I just faced almost dying, and at the end of the day, that's where we're all headed. So I better be able to look back on my life and know I gave it everything I had. And
That's it.
I couldn't authentically say that at 26, but at 36, I can authentically say I've been putting it all on the court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. And I love the way you describe the collapsing of the three circles of ego. And I think everybody can take a lesson out of those three dimensions: courage, vulnerability, and humility. So as we wrap up, because I know you've got a coaching session to get to, people listening to this, if they're looking for, okay, I'm inspired by this, right? I think I've got the courage. I think I've got the potential. I think I want. I think I know where I'm heading. I think I know what I stand for. What action can they take right now? So if there was one thing that you would encourage people to do to either build their level of vulnerability, embrace a level of courage, be a little bit more humble, but something that's practical that they can do right now, what would be one suggestion that you would make for people to start getting to the next level?
Well, for anyone who's listening to this show, it's very obvious that they are people who are growth oriented, especially if you've gotten to this point in this conversation, because there's certain people out there that just cannot look at self.
Yeah.
They can improve processes, they can achieve externally, but they just can't look at self. And that's just their ego and their protectors. They just don't want to look at. They're probably stuck in shame and they don't know it, and so they're on autopilot. And I think we've all been guilty of that at times. But if I were to give one tip, yeah, it would probably be, and this can be really scary for people, so I understand why. So proceed with caution with this, but I would say contemplate your own mortality. And ask yourself the tough questions. Let me give you some tough questions. We have some questions, we call them the true north questions. I wear this North Star around my neck ever since the car accident, and it really represents my mission, my calling, my purpose. And it really, what it comes down to is reaching my own unique potential and helping others do the same. I have it written right there. Everything else is secondary. And that's what I'm here to do, and I know that. Did it choose me, or did I choose it, or is it both? I don't really know. Probably both. Destiny, or calling, or fate, right? I would say we all have, when you get really quiet and you face mortality, you're going to feel a pull towards something. And whatever that pull is, it's going to require tons of courage. And I think contemplating is actually really scary. I know some people, and we all can picture being at a holiday dinner with our family. And just imagine, everyone imagine being at a big holiday dinner and then just doing a toast and saying, who here is excited to talk? Who here can tell us your top 3 bottlenecks in 2025? Everyone would be like, what?
What?
What? What are you most excited to achieve in 2025 in terms of growth and contribution? What's the course you're taking right now that you're most excited about? Everyone would be like, okay, I'm not going to be friends with him anymore. So the problem is we just don't contemplate.
Yeah.
So we're all on autopilot, just going with the flow. Well, we watch the Super Bowl. Okay, well,
Mm,
why? Right? Well, we watch TV and we watch Netflix. Well, why? Why that
mm,
show?
mm,
Why that sport? Why are you doing what you're doing? And so for me, after the car accident, I never do anything anymore without contemplating why. Like, what's
mm-hmm.
underneath this? What's the real motivation? Like, why am I drinking so much alcohol?
Yeah.
I've been sober for over 5 years now, but I used to drink and I didn't know why.
Yeah.
Now I know why. I mean, the childhood I just told you, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
grew up in it. My mom and
Yeah.
stepdad drank. They were partiers. So you just have to question your own existence. You have to be an existentialist. And I don't want to project on anybody, but existentialists are people who question why they're doing what they're doing. What is the
Mm,
point of all this? What is
mm,
my purpose? Why are we here? Why this
yeah.
country? Why
Yeah.
why Massachusetts? Why Australia?
Yeah.
Why this economy? Why this president? Why? So you just have to contemplate, because otherwise you're pretty much going to get to the end of your life and realize, holy shit, I never really chose. This wasn't really my choice. This was a sort of default conditioning rather than my own sort of calling.
Or you've lived somebody else's life based on what they wanted you to do because of the modeling they showed you. But what you're talking about there is just a voracious appetite for curiosity. Just, and it's not
Yeah.
a case of why are we doing this? It's ridiculous. It's saying just understand, get underneath the surface. What is the purpose? What is the reason? And if you do that, there might be some things that open up that gives you some ideas about it, maybe a different path you can now be more intentional with.
Yeah, and now you have a choice.
Yeah,
Because
that's
if you didn't know it was an option,
that's it.
I didn't even know what vulnerability meant until I was 29. Right? I was ignorant. I didn't know it. So curiosity, you said it better than I did. Curiosity will lead you to a deeper understanding, and then you can actually be the chess master rather than the chess piece.
Yeah, love it, mate. Got to say, really enjoyed this conversation. We probably could talk for hours, but you've got about another 400 coaching sessions to do before 7:30, and it's only 6:15.
We got one more left. One more left. How dare you?
So, Alan, for people wanting to know more about you and connect with you, and also knowing a bit more about next level university, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can reach out on social media: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can Google my name, Alan Lazaros, ALANLAZAROS. If you're big into the chat GPT stuff, you can say, tell me everything you know about Alan Lazaros, and you can find me there. And I think that's super useful. If you are looking to, if you have a sincere interest, this is what I've started saying. I never had the courage to say this in the past because I was a coward, but now here we go. Seriously though, coward. Socially. Behind the scenes, super courageous. Socially,
Yeah.
absolute coward. All right, so it's one or the other, right? Two types of people in the world: people who are fearful and fucking liars. I'm kidding. I'm
That's
sorry.
it.
I don't know if I'm
That's
supposed to
it.
swear or not.
No, it's okay. It's all
I had
good.
to throw one in there. If you need to
Yeah.
bleep it out, I
No,
feel
you're
free.
right. All good.
So if you have a sincere interest to grow and contribute towards your goals and dreams, and you're humble and you're curious and you want to contemplate and you want to learn and you want to achieve more, then you're going to love me. You're going to love Kev, my business partner. You're going to love NLU. We are the ultimate tryhards. We both came from very, very challenging beginnings. We both grew up without fathers. We are both trying to be the male role models we never had. And yeah, you're going to love NLU. Next level you, next level version of you. So we're not going to tell you how to be. We're going to help you uncover who you want to be and then lean into that. If you have any level of arrogance or entitlement and you want big rewards for minimal effort, do not reach out under any circumstances. You're going to waste my time and you're going to waste Kevin's time because we won't vibe, because Kevin and I are the ultimate tryhards. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Mate, I'll put all that information in the show notes. Hey, thank you for jumping on. I'm glad that we connected, and I'm always really curious in terms of how people do connect. So and I think it's all meant to be. So really love the vibe today. I really love the conversation, and yeah, thanks for being such a great guest on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast.
Darren, thank you for having me. Like I said, sandwich in gratitude. It's been an honor, and thank you for being just an inspiration to other people, because obviously you're into self-improvement. Otherwise, you wouldn't have enjoyed this interview. And I think that's what the world needs more of, is self-improvement, accountability, personal responsibility. And I think the world can change that way. So thank you for being a part of that. And thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com, and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.